I'd like to next call upon Ekta to present her paper on corporate governance.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, the organizers, for having me here. It's a great opportunity, and it's coming back home in terms of IGIDR. And my today's presentation is on women on board and performance of family firms. This is a joint paper with Professor Jayati Sarkar from IGIDR. So the research objective is we are revisiting the question that has been asked more recently, given the quota system some of the European countries have been implementing. So we are revisiting the question, what is the effect of gender diversity, okay, on the performance of Indian firms? Now we are putting, what is new here is, we are bringing in the emerging market perspective where there is a family control. Okay, that has not been visited much in the literature, in the existing literature. Whatever we have is in terms of the widely held firms, okay, where there is a market perspective of hiring the directors from the market, from the human capital market. In India, scenario is slightly different. So we are trying to explore the emerging market perspective where the job market is not that developed and the hiring can be dependent on the board control itself. Okay, so we kind of control, we introduce the family control through the ownership structure as well as through their control on the board. Okay, and then revisit the question that whether gender diversity plays any role in terms of affecting the performance. So why India? Because India is the latest country that has joined Norway and other countries to introduce a quota for one woman on board recently from the Companies Act 2003. So that brings us, that makes India a very interesting experimental setup. So and giving a little bit of background before I move to the contributions and specific questions. So the background is very simple. So the background for the existing empirical evidence kind of marries the psychological literature, okay, where people highlight there are intrinsic differences between men and women in terms of the decisions they make, in terms of their risk-taking behavior, and so on and so forth, and try to explain, why certain decisions are better if you have women on board versus having a male director on board, okay? And then building on those arguments, people have gone through, like, for example, Adams and Ferreira, Rose and Packel, that they have gone to explore how women on board or the gender diversity per se affects certain decisions or the corporate governance mechanisms in the firm and ultimately the firm performance. Okay, so that is the background. So empirical evidence, taking this kind of a building on this kind of a background is kind of a mix. We don't have an ambiguous answer, an unambiguous answer for whether gender diversity is good or bad. It's all mixed. For example, there are positive effects on profitability or market value. So in terms of accounting performance as well as the market performance when taken to the firms based in US and all. And at the same time, the first set of paper is when it has looked into the corporate governance mechanisms, like in terms of the attendance of the committee meeting attendance by the women directors versus the male directors. There are evidences which talk about the negative effect on the performance, okay, from the US firms, the US listed firms. The other set of papers that look into the gender diversity is taking the sample from the Norway, okay, Norway and other countries where the quota has been introduced. So there is a regulation that there has to be certain percentage of women on board, and they have explained or explored whether it affects the performance or not. So that's a third set of the third point. They haven't found any effect, and some papers have actually found a negative effect. So empirical evidence is overall ambiguous. We don't have an ambiguous answer to that. Now, so that kind of leads to motivation. So most of these firms are widely held firms. Literature per se, they do not go into detail and focus on the family control, how gender diversity operates when there is a family dominance. Okay, so that is essentially our main motivation. So existing evidence is limited to the widely held firms where mixed findings indicate roles of the governance structure, regulatory frameworks, and that there could be other factors. And people have highlighted that governance structures, regulatory framework, economic culture per se can play a role. So we kind of explore, we take that route and revisit the question. Okay, so that question has been explored, but we try to understand that how gender diversity affects, whether it affects or not, and if it affects, how, in what direction it affects on firm performance, given the type 2 agency setup where you have, you don't have a traditional principal agent problem, but you have kind of the controlling owner versus small owner problem. Further, we explore, so that's our first contribution. Second is we explore the variation in the effectiveness of gender diversity. Okay, if we find a positive, so in our paper we find a positive effect on the market performance, then we check for whether this intensity is varying across when we introduce the family dominance. Okay, so we introduce the family dominance through ownership concentration as well as through the control over the board structure per se. Finally, the third contribution we make is, and within the second point, we also kind of take care in terms of the type of women director, whether it's an independent director or it's a grade director. So I'll go into that detail further. Third contribution is we exploit the natural experiment setup. Okay, that has been given to us through the mandatory gender quota introduced in the corporate boards. So we exploit this natural experiment setup to answer this question, whether the compliance has, or by having the regulation in place is driving the performance or gender diversity per se. Okay. So data and research methodology. So we have taken all the NSE listed firms between 2005 and 2014, so around 10 years, 9 years, 10 years data we have. That leads to 10,218 firm year observations. Now we dropped all the firms where we didn't find the reasonable data on sales, assets, and the type of women director or the board data. Then so that leads to our final sample years. And one primary thing we had to keep in mind is that we have to have the, the appointment dates and everything, because we can't just rely on whether there is a women on board. So we had the information on when does the women join on the board and if there is a change in the board. So all those kind of contributed to the sample selection. So that was our final sample. Then, given the empirical literature that to take care of the omitted variable bias, we estimate all the regressions using form and year fixed defects. Then, to take care of the reverse causality, because there's an endogeneity argument that the directors, the women directors, especially the independent women directors, may be joining the boards who are better performed. So there is an endogeneity. We take care of that. We check for the endogeneity, and then we take care of endogeneity using IV regression. So finally, all the panel data and difference in difference equation we estimate using this the equation. The standard equation, firm performance, and our main variable of interest is gender diversity after controlling for firm level characteristics and year and firm fixed defects. Okay, so research framework. Now this kind of tells us the variables that we use most of the in our analysis. So gender diversity has been there are three variables which we use to capture gender diversity. So first is the dummy variable, the presence of women on board. Second is the number of female directors on board, and the third one is the percentage. Now, if you go to the empirical literature, then people have used kind of either the dummy variable or the number of women directors. So we have kind of compiled and used all the three variables which we have found in the literature. Then further we kind of give the type of the director across these three measures. So dummy variable for whether the woman is independent or a grade director. So the independent director is whether it is defined as independent director from the data. Then we also check for the independence of the women director. So essentially go through the definitions of independent director, then verify whether the women director is really independent or not. Then the grade director is essentially the non-executive director, but is related to the firm, maybe sharing the same last name, or or is a part of the family. So those are called the grade director, where they cannot be assigned as the independent directors. So we we account for that classification, and we introduce these two types along with our three variables: dummy variable, number of women director, and the percentage of women director. Then in terms of the family control, we have two types of controls. In terms of the family dominance instead. So one is the ownership concentration, which is quite standard in the literature. If the owner concentration in terms of the controlling shareholder is greater than 20%, okay, that comes from the standard LaPorta literature. It is defined as the family concentration or the insider concentration. The second innovation that we have is in terms of the board control. So we introduce the control in terms of the board. So control by the family dominance over the operations of the board. Okay. So the first one is control 1, which is the base variable, base category, no control. When the promoter is, so the promoter here is the controlling shareholder. By definition, in India, promoter is in control of the management. Okay, so we don't have to really verify that, we take it as it is. So first base category is when the promoter has no control, is neither a chairperson nor a CEO, okay, and zero otherwise. Second category is when the promoter is having the full control. So it is both the chairperson as well as the chief executive officer or an MD. Third one is if the promoter is retaining the operational control, when the promoter is a CEO only and zero otherwise. Fourth category is when the promoter is a chairperson only, okay, and zero otherwise. Then finally for our DIT, we kind of, I'll go into details, so I'm going to skip this for a moment. Yeah. So quickly summarizing the findings. So what we do is we kind of, the main contribution is in terms of introducing the family control and effectiveness of the gender diversity and effect of the gender diversity when there is a family control. Family dominance through the ownership, through the board control. So our main finding is we do find robust evidence that women directors on corporate board positively affect firm value, and this effect increases with the number of women directors on board. So we find a positive relationship with respect to the number as well as with respect to the dummy variable presence of women on board. Second finding is the positive effect of gender diversity on board performance weakens with the extent to which family exerts control through occupying key management positions on board. That is our main contribution, which we have not seen so far in the literature. So the intensity of board, the positive effect actually comes down when there is a family control through the board positions. And we'll see why board matters here, the control through board matters here in a short while. Third is women director affiliated to family, which are essentially the grade directors, have no significant effect on the firm value, whereas it is the independent, the positive effect is driven by the independent women directors. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So these are, okay, I'll skip. I'll go to the main, okay, this is very important. Why the board control is, important for us. If you see group affiliates and standalones, this is, the intensity where they have, the group firms have less of the operation control versus the standalone firms. And whereas in terms of full control also, standalone firms are retaining more of a full control. Okay, so there's a lot of variation to explore. Now, this is our first fixed effect regression. So you see the positive effect of across the dummy variable as well as the number. In terms of percentage, it is not significant, which is kind of consistent throughout our results. Now, what I want to, in profitability, I will skip. I'll come to the conclusion. Okay, reverse causality. So this was our first fixed effect regression where we control for the form level heterogeneity and the omitted variable bias. Then there is an issue about the reverse causality that in terms of performance driving the women on board. So we kind of introduce an instrument which is a male-female board connection. That is not our variable, but we take it from Adams and Ferreira and the Liu 2015, which essentially captures if the male are sitting in the board, who are also sitting in the board where there are more females, so they are more inclined towards hiring of women directors. So that is essentially because lack of social connections might be a reason for lesser number of female representation on board. So after we verify the validity of this instrument through the Hausman test, and what we find is essentially there is a presence of endogeneity when it comes to the market performance. In terms of Tobin skew, we do find the endogeneity. So you see that the Hausman test is significant, whereas in terms of the profitability, we don't find any endogeneity. So we take care of endogeneity through the IV regression for all our market performance regressions, where market performance is measured through log of Tobin skew, and which is a standard in the literature, and we do find the consistent result in terms of positive effect of the women on board, the presence of women on board, and the number of women directors. We don't find any effect of the percentage of women directors. Okay. And then the ownership variable. So with ownership, you see that if the family firm retains more than 20%, what we see is the negative effect that comes here in terms of number of female directors, in terms of the percentage of female directors. We see a negative effect, whereas the standalone effect is the positive. So the negative effect, so the effect of women on board weakens when there is a family control. Now, in terms of the board control, the same thing happens. So control 2, control 1 is a base category. So when they have the full control, it is negative. When they have the operational control, negative. When they have strategic control, negative. The full control being the highest effect, bringing down the positive effect of the women on board. So full control on the board actually weakens the positive effect of the gender diversity in Indian firms. But it is still positive. If you compare these two, the standalone form of DFDIR, NFDIR, compared to the negative, it is still positive, but it is less. Okay. And then we check for the independent directors, and we find there is an endogeneity, which we suspected, that independent directors are the one who will be looking for the firm performance to, get appointed in those firms. So we do find support for endogeneity with respect to independent directors. So all our independent directors regressions we re-estimate using the IV regression, using our instrument, and there's no effect on the all the ROA regressions are estimated using the fixed effect. So our findings are still consistent in terms of the independent directors. So positive effect of independent directors, having an independent woman director, positive effect of number of independent directors, women independent directors on board. We don't find a proportion with respect to proportion, which is consistent to the overall effect. Now, grade directors are essentially not endogenous in our study, and actually we verify. We do not suspect that it is very easy to kind of justify that we won't find any endogeneity with respect to the grade directors, because grade directors are, kind of picked up within the family itself, so they cannot be suspected with the, having any reverse causality with the performance. So we kind of verify that, and we use all the standard fixed effect models for with respect to the grade directors. We do not find any significant effect on the firm performance with respect to both market value in terms of Tobin skew as well as the profitability when we introduce the presence, number, and proportion of grade directors. Now, finally, the effect of compliance. What we do essentially is, I'll just tell our experimental setup. What we do is we need to understand that, okay, on an average, we saw that there is a positive effect of gender diversity. Now, we need to understand whether this positive effect was actually driven when there was a compliance. It was driven by the underlying hypothesis is the gender diversity enforced by the law itself would change the firm value, would increase the firm value. So what we do is, essentially, we take all the firms which did not have any women director from 2001 to 2011. Why 2011? Because of this timeline. 2011 was the first time where the Draft Companies Bill was introduced. So there was an expectation building in the market that, okay, firms should hire women directors, at least one woman director. So what we do is, for 10 years, they did not have any woman director, any single woman director. So their intentions were very clear that they do not want to hire unless they were being forced through the law. So it gives us a clear-cut sample. Then we have three groups. We do a regression across we define three treatment and control groups. So with respect to three timelines. So first treatment and control group is a set of firms, set of companies that appointed only one woman director after 2011, okay? After the introduction of the draft bill. Just 2 minutes. After the introduction of the draft bill. The second one is between 2012 and 13. Okay, so that was, we stop at 2013 where the companies bill was introduced. Okay, then the third treatment group is the set of companies which appointed one woman director only after they were being forced. So 2014 was the revised date to comply. Okay, so there was an expectation, then there was introduction of the Companies Act where they were supposed to comply, and there was a revised date when they were forced to comply, otherwise the penalty will be introduced. So what we do is, so with respect to all these three treatment groups, and we run this regression essentially on the firm performance, and firm performance is we check for, again, accounting performance and the market performance. So this is a standard DID regression where the treatment is takes a value of 1. Yeah, when the firm has appointed women director with respect to that particular time period. And after this defined accordingly 2011, between 2011 and 2012 and 15, 2012 and 13, 2014 and 15. So what we find is essentially this. So for the entire set of firms, so here we are not, for the entire set of firms, there is a positive effect, this one. So when there was an expectation, the market kind of rewards the firms which responded to the expectation of the draft bill. Okay, as well as when there was a forced compliance, okay, when there was a penalty introduced, the market is still kind of rewarding the firms, okay, who complied. So that's the effect of the compliance. So we repeat this exercise to find out whether firms were window dressing and the market actually accounted for the window dressing. So what we did was Grey Women Director. So we redefined the treatment group where they appointed the Grey Women Director. And it is clear that market did not reward it. Okay, did not reward these firms. So if the firm is window dressing, market is able to, kind of identify that. And so we should expect a positive sign with respect to independent director, and there we are. So we saw a positive sign when there was a draft bill introduced with respect to the introduction of hiring independent women director. The market actually rewarded for the firms who actually responded to the first draft bill. Later on, they did not, because what we saw is when there was a forced compliance, so when there was a forced compliance, almost every firm had the independent directors. Okay, so there was no difference. So we didn't find any significant effect. So that's all about it. And so main conclusion were, if I have to summarize, positive effect of women on board. The positive effect weakens when there is a family dominance. Okay, and the positive effect is more or less driven by the independent women on board. So that is our main contribution of our study, which is kind of unique in the current scenario. Okay, So thanks for giving me extra time, and you can ask any
problem.
question. Thank you.
So thanks, Ekta, for your presentation. Actually, Vijay conveys his regrets for not being able to make it as the discussant, but we do have very good inputs from Rajeshwari Sengupta. She'll review this paper and present her comments on it. Thank you. Rajeshwari, we have 10 minutes. Thank you.
That's a lot of time. Thanks, Ekta, and thanks, Vardhana, and thanks, Susan, for giving me the chance to read a paper on corporate governance, which is really not my area of research. But it was very interesting reading the paper. I learned a lot, and I'll be very quick with my comments. So I don't really need to summarize the paper because Ekta has done a very good job of that. Motivation, I'm just going to skip over it. Essentially, the idea being that the literature on the effect of women directors on firm performance is relatively scant. And that's what the authors are trying to do, look at family-owned firms in the context of India, which makes sense because 85% of the market cap comes from the family-owned firms. And also because empirical evidence on the performance effects of women directors is so mixed, they're trying to look at what happens when you're looking at women directors specifically for the family firms. Very quickly, 2005 to 2014 is the period that they're looking at, the context being the introduction of the mandatory gender quota in the Companies Act, which was drafted in 2011, announced in 2013, with a compliance deadline of 2015. So that's a little bit of a tricky introduction of the quota. They do the usual suspects of controlling for firm, year, industry fixed effects, 3 different estimation methods, fixed effects, IV and DID. The dependent variable is Tobin's Q. They look at the book value, not the market value, because majority of the corporate debt in India is institutional debt, which is not traded. So that makes sense. ROA, profitability measure. The key independent variable of interest is a dummy for the presence of a women director on the board. Also number and percentage of women directors. Again, variables that the literature has looked at. Main findings, the authors say that they find robust evidence about the presence of women directors on corporate boards. The effect is lower for family firms. The higher the control of the promoter, when the promoter is in a CEO or a top position, the weaker is the effect. The non-executive directors don't have an effect, while the independent directors do. Overall, they conclude saying that the findings provide support to instituting gender quota in family firms. Now, it's an interesting question, especially in the context of gender quota, and they've done quite a bit of a detailed analysis with multiple estimation methods. I have some general comments before I move on to the main ones. So it seems that what the paper is suggesting that the mere appointment of a woman director on the board helps to improve firm value. And I think that's a big leap that's being taken in the analysis. And there are a whole host of factors which are not looked into, not accounted for, not discussed. For example, what about the qualification of these women directors? What about their past industry experience? Have they been on the boards of companies of similar industries? What about the relationship with the promoter? I would think in family firms, the promoters would tend to put their wives, sisters, or sisters-in-law or whatever on the board. Does it have any effect on the firm value at all? What about the role of these women directors in the decision-making? Are they just sitting there on the board? Or do they even have any decision-making power in the board? What about the presence of other women directors on the board? That is bound to have an effect on the introduction of one additional director. Or what if the firm has a majority of women employees? That is also going to have an effect about whether this women director is effective or not. So, and one could think of a whole host of other factors which would explain whether having a woman director has any effect on firm value. I mean, just appointing a director and profitability and ROA going up, that's a big leap that's being taken. So coming from a non-corporate governance background, I have a bit of a trouble in understanding the connection there. Also, in terms of gender variable in the database, I would be a little bit skeptical about measurement error because the gender is not specifically mentioned in the database. So the authors are looking at the names and the initials of the directors to figure out gender. Now, while in India we know it's not that hard, but at the same time, if I say doctor, I don't know, right, whether the male, female, the gender in the initials, or there could be names which are not that easy to figure out. So there could be measurement error there because you don't have a gender indicator. Okay? But I'm not going to harp too much on it because I don't know what data you've looked at and how you're doing the thing. The one point that the paper is harping on is that in family firms, the control of the promoter may weaken the effect weakens the effect of the female directors. And I would say in family firms, if the promoter is a CEO, that will weaken the power of all the other directors in the board, not necessarily the female directors. So what is so special or specific about looking at women directors' effect doesn't really come across very well. And that would bring back to the question that the motivation of looking at family firms itself is not coming out very clearly in the empirical analysis. Okay. So those are my general comments, but my main comments would be on the econometric side of it, and hopefully they'll be helpful for the authors. So I'll go one by one, the 3 estimation methods that they have done. The first one is a panel fixed effects model, and for those of us who have worked a lot with panel fixed effects, that's a standard equation where alpha I captures the cross-sectional fixed effects, in this case the firm fixed effects. Now in an FE model, the identification entirely comes from variation in the time element of X, if any at all, right? Whereas in this particular case, the time variation or time series variation in the key independent variable, which is presence of a woman director on the board, is highly limited. And that is going to cause a serious trouble for your identification strategy in an FE model. Also, if hypothetically speaking, if the change is coming from the underlying change in law, even then there's going to be a problem because the causal impact of that change in the X is getting absorbed by your year fixed effects. And in all the estimations, you have year fixed effects. So I would be very careful about using a fixed effects estimation when there is hardly any time series variation on the right-hand side key independent variable. The second is, in case of firm variables, there's almost always influential observations or outliers, and that would mess up the regressions because that would bias the coefficients. So one way to do it would be to use robust statistics to assess the problem, to deal with the problem, but then I'm not sure how the interface of the robust statistics with fixed effects can be worked out, and that's a very tricky area, right? But influential observations are bound to bias your coefficient, so that's something to watch out for. The third point on firm variables is, in your estimation, the authors are ignoring any possibility of nonlinearity. For example, effect of size on firm performance. Am I saying that it's a linear connection between size and firm performance? I would definitely think not. Okay, so any kind of nonlinearity is not being addressed. So overall, I would say a linear FE model with not much of a time series variation on the right-hand side is not a good estimation strategy in this particular case, because you have no variation coming in from your presence of woman directed as a dummy variable on the right-hand side. The second point on the IV, the authors say that they're estimating an alternative model specification with instrumental variables. Now, and the IV that they use is male-female board connection. To break it out, it is the percentage of male directors on the board of the firm in question who are also directors on other boards that have female directors. And they say that there are papers which have used this as an instrument. Now, again, those of us who have worked in the field of instrumental variables, finding a good, robust instrument is very, very hard. Okay? You have to prove rigorously and in a robust manner that the instrumental variable is not affecting Y through X. And that amount of rigorous evidence is not coming out in the paper. So I would definitely be suspicious about the validity and the strength of the instrument that you're using. And of course, once I say that, everything else at the IV regression is suspect, in my opinion. The final point, the DID model, essentially the definitive model is used to evaluate the causal impact of a change in law, the context here being the introduction of the Companies Act. Now, this design works if there are 2 conditions that are being met. One is, this needs a control group where there was no change, and the control group firms must be similar to the treatment group firms, right? There has to be the like-like matching. However, in this paper, I can easily turn it around and say there were a bunch of socially progressive firms which already had women directors on the board. So when the law was being introduced, they didn't really experience any change. And then there were a bunch of socially regressive firms which did not have women directors on the boards, but they were forced to introduce at least one when the law came about. So which means that the control group here is very specific. The only specific types of firms which are being the control group, and there is a strong selection bias. So also in the paper, the match balance between the treatment and the control group firms is not being established. So how similar are the treatment and the control group firms is not shown at all. Now, if you had a good match balance, you wouldn't even have to control for other variables in your DID. But when you're doing DID without match balance, that is setting it up for trouble because you don't have the treatment control comparison. And when you're doing this staggered 2012 introduction writing, it doesn't really seem to be a clean treatment, right? But even before that, I would be worried about that match balance because you don't really have a control group here. Okay, so, and I would end my last slide. So it is useful to assess the effect, and it's always interesting to assess the effect of an exogenous policy change on firms, provided there is no selection bias. Now, if I had to look back at this particular change, a perfect regulatory change in this case would be a staggered introduction of the gender quota. So if the regulation said that firms with 5,000 crore size introduce a quota in the first year, then you do 4,000 crore firms, then you do, and the staggered increase would give you control firms, and that would be a very clean DID estimation that would pick out the causal effect of the introduction of the quota, which you don't have in this case, because the quota was not introduced in this manner. So does it question or exercise even lend itself to a DID estimation? I don't think so. Okay? So I would be suspicious about the results that are being presented, because the FE is, you don't have a time series variation on the right-hand side. The DID, you don't have a clean treatment control group. So I would push you to think a little bit deeper about what exactly can be done to get out a causal effect. Okay? And that's where I would end. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajeshwari. We now open this floor for question and answers, and I request Ekta to respond to everything together. Thanks. Yes, Prachi.
So if I understood correctly your sample, you're looking only at family managed firms, and within that looking at the results. So I was wondering if the results are different for non-family owned firms compared to you.
Yes, Professor Yadav.
Yeah.
I think the discussant made a very important point, and that was what I was thinking of as well when the presentation was being made. You have this sample of all firms. Some of them already have women directors on the board, and some of them are appointing women directors because of the change in the law. So, in some sense, the firms which already have women director on the board, they are already progressive, and that progressiveness may be shown in their outlook that may be showing in their performance in the future as well. So one really needs to really look only at the firms which did not have women directors on the board. So how one can deal with that in order to be able to make a convincing case that, okay, addition, as the discussant pointed out, to say that addition of one woman director on the board made such a big difference in performance in such a short time appears like a leap of faith. So it needs to be really, shown very, very strongly. One more point. On the first slide, you had a quote which said that women are more democratic, more transformative, have better ethical standards, are brighter, etc., etc. I agree with all of that, but does that come from empirical evidence, or is it act of faith again?
It's good. I'll let Krishnan take one.
I have a small question. It is, would your sample allow you to check for the effect of women not just on the board but as CEO?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Just have a comment because following up with Pradeep's observation that you make in the beginning, which is like women are better in some sense, which they have find some empirical evidence at when you do at the very low level of men and women. But as you rise up the corporate ladder, then all this difference disappears. Or women at the top are as hungry as men, in some sense. However, one question is this. Because there is always this normative issue, are women are better than men or not, and that's a very difficult to defend decision. Maybe this can be placed in a little bit more, in a way that is a marriage between, those people who oppose versus people who favor. In the sense that instead of passing a normative sort of a judgment that women are better than men, this evidence shows that under certain circumstances, women also succumb to, I can interpret this that women are very good on all these things, but when they're subjected to promoter dominance, they suddenly lose all their characteristics because their effect becomes less, and in family firms they disappear. So maybe there is a balance that, left alone there may be some effect, but women are in some sense subjected to pressure, and Therefore, it is not a completely normative, unconditional statement, but depends on institutional characteristics. That will balance these two opposing sides. And maybe more acceptable as a conclusion.
We'll take a last question from him, and
Yeah.
Ekta, then you respond for that.
There's just a comment on the legislation, which I think Rajeshwari also picked up on. So, in case you're looking at refining the paper, so I think the SEBI listing rules, there's clause 49, which looks at publicly listed companies, and there I think it's staggered. So, depending on your revenues and your turnover, you need to.
Little.
Sure. And secondly, my comment is that even assuming that women are better than men, if let's go with the conclusion, the question is that so legislation is being used to kind of do away with a certain gender bias and sexism which is prevalent in our society. But there are certain other biases as well. So there's caste-based bias and there is religion-based bias and so on. So I'm just wondering, are we getting into gray area where financial legislation should try and do away with social ills? So is this a slippery slope?
Okay.
Yes, Ekta, you can
Yeah.
take the answers.
Thank you, Rajeshwari, for the detailed comments, and also thank you for the questions. Now I'll take the easy ones first. Yeah, so your question was easy. Hers was difficult. So family versus non-family. So the way we do is we introduce the family control through ownership. So our sample has both family as well as non-family. Later on, we introduce the family control through ownership, concentrated ownership, as well as through the board control. So there we see the weakening effect of the gender diversity. So that was simple. Then, first of all, because all the questions were in terms of, whether women are better or not, we are not starting with that actually. We're saying, okay, given all sorts of arguments about, whether women are better and what the development literature has found at a lower level, they look at the, the teachers who are female, whether they teach well or not. So given all that, so there are intrinsic differences, but, at the management level, we say that there won't be any differences. We are looking at, whether the control in terms of the control structure, the governance control structure actually plays a role. Okay, after controlling for both sides and presence of independent directors and instruments and stuff like that. So that was our starting point actually. Now, with respect to the DID regression, what we did was we do have a control. So we started with the firms which never had a female director for 10 years. So it's a clean set where there is no female director, and what we see is after 2011, 12, 13, 14, they are hiring women director. So naturally it is in response to the legislation or the expectation of the legislation, right?
Not about firms which didn't have and then they have. It's about the match balance between the treatment and the control.
Yeah.
So firms which didn't have and continued to not have after the legislation.
So that's a control.
Would be the control. Yeah.
Yes.
So you have not. So establishing that match balance in a clean way is very important before you do the DID.
Yeah. So that is our control sample, which is out of this sample, say the initial sample where they did not have the female director. Then the treatment is where they hired they appointed one woman director, okay, and the control is where they continued not having any woman director. And because we did not match in terms of size and age, we controlled for, in our regression. So that is the approach we have followed, but definitely we'll look into that. So that was our control sample where they continued not having a female director and after controlling for size and all. So with respect to IV, we did run the robustness in the sense we checked whether the instrument variable actually does not lead to does not affect the Y through X. So, but we can definitely look into that more. Yeah, with respect to your point about the other variables, what is their qualification and all, certainly that's a director level regression that we are currently working on. So this was a firm level regression. That is purely a director level where we have the male versus female, and then we see how their qualification and all matters, age, qualification, etc. One point you made was their relationship with the promoter. So that is essentially the grade director. When we see that whether the one woman director or more than one woman director is a grade director. So they are related to the firm, or they are siding the controlling or the control group. So they are called the grade director. Okay, so that covers whether the female director is a part of the promoter group or not. So that we have kind of looked into separately. Then, yeah, that smaller point on the measurement error. So we actually, we looked into each and every initial. So every name has been checked and cross-checked. If the initial is doctor, we are not just taking it doctor. So we are looking at the entire name, and we are taking the first name as the women director, and sometimes going back and referring. So that measurement error has been kind of completely eliminated from the sample. I mean, it took a long time to clean up that sample. Okay. Yes, and I can check for whether there is a promoter CEO and how it affects on the other directors' role or not. Definitely, other directors overall, the board structure will be weakened if there is a promoter CEO. So partly we control through, by introducing, because our main variable of interest is the gender diversity. So kind of but we can easily check for the male directors as well. That can be checked actually. Yeah. So did I answer all the questions? Yeah, non-linearity is, about the form. About the time variation in the firm, so we do see a little bit of time variation. It's not like, if when the woman is appointed, it kind of stays in the firm. So there is a change in the board. So, and that is kind of, sorry? No, once they are appointed, they stay for some years, then they also are being, kind of, yeah. Yeah, so that is one point. And about the non-linearity, we can check. We have dropped all the outliers in the main variables, like the leverage and all. So we have kind of taken the 1 percentile and 5 percentile, done that check also. So, and we have covered, sometimes we have covered the industry effects and firm fixed effects. Like that.
Ekta,
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You've responded to all
Yeah,
of them?
I'm done, yeah.
Okay. I'd like to thank first the discussants for the time they've taken and the feedback that they have given to the authors, and to the authors for the good work that has been done, and its different perspectives that they have given for these two topics. To Shashwat, you should look at taking the comments back, and the kind of business aspect which you're looking at for the analysis should be reconciled with the macro perspectives. And to Ekta, I'd like to end this session on that lighter note, that even the SEBI chairman had made a statement that firms were threatened of serious consequences in case of non-compliance of this particular law or the regulation that was got about. And Ekta's study, I think, should be taken up by the firms to see that, yes, complying by the law, or, should induce voluntary compliance of this particular law. With that note, I'll just close this particular session.